Just a few miles from the shimmering canals and grand palazzos of Venice lies a place forgotten by time and feared by many, a small island wrapped in fog and silence known as Poveglia. To locals it is the cursed island. To historians, it is a grim monument to centuries of disease, despair and death. To ghost hunters, it is a magnet for restless spirits and unexplained phenomena. But what is the true story behind Poveglia? Is it a haunted wasteland, haunted only by myths and superstition? Or is there something darker lurking beneath the surface? Today, we'll journey into the heart of Italy's most infamous island, where plague victims were cast aside, where the mad were locked away, and where the cries of the past may still echo through the ruins. My name is Creeps. Welcome to the Graveyard Shift. Long before plague pits and abandoned asylums walls, Poveglia was just a quiet spit of land in the Venetian lagoon. Its earliest records date back to 421 AD, when refugees fleeing barbarian invasions sought shelter among its reeds and salt marshes. The island was small, isolated, perfect for escape and secrecy. But by the 10th century, the Venetian Republic had claimed the lagoon as its watery domain. Poveglia grew into a tiny farming and fishing community. Vineyards flourished, families built homes and small chapels. Life was simple but full. Yet the island's isolation was a double-edged sword. When the Black Death swept across Europe in the mid-14th century, Venice became a trade hub beset by disease. Fearful of the plague's deadly march, the Republic began using islands like Poveglia as quarantine stations, places to isolate the sick and the suspected. In 1468, a lazaretto, a quarantine hospital, was established on Poveglia. Ships arriving with infected passengers were first docked at the island, where patients were inspected and held away from the city. As plague outbreaks returned time and again over the centuries, the islands earned a terrible reputation. Locals whispered that the soil itself was cursed, soaked with the ashes and blood of the dead. It was said that the cries of those left to die still echoed in the wind, and that at night ghostly figures could be seen wandering among the ruins of the old lazaretto. One legend tells of a young woman who was left on the island while sick with the plague. Unable to escape, she died alone. But her spirit, the story goes, returned nightly to light a lantern and guide lost souls to safety, or perhaps to warn the living to stay away. Fishermen still claim that their nets sometimes catch the bones of those buried beneath centuries of ash, and many refuse to set foot on the island, believing it to be a threshold between the living and the dead. As Europe's darkest pandemic raged on, Poveglia's role became more sinister. During the bubonic plague outbreaks of the 17th and 18th centuries, the island was transformed into a mass graveyard. Thousands of victims were ferried across the lagoon, too sick to survive the journey back to Venice, too dangerous to stay. They were stacked in grim warehouses and tents. Many died waiting for care that never came. When death struck, bodies were buried on massive pyres. The smoke from these fires darkened the sky for weeks at a time. Burials were rushed and often incomplete. Archaeologists today have uncovered mass graves, pits filled with layered skeleton, some showing signs of being buried alive, struggling for breath in the dark earth. Survivors spoke of hearing agonizing screams carried on the wind of shadows that moved beneath the waves. The island's name became synonymous with death itself. The island's isolation made it perfect quarantine station, but conditions were brutal. The Venetians calls it a lazaretto, a place not just to quarantine the sick, but to isolate and ultimately forget them. For those sent there, hope was scarce. The only connection to the outside world was the ferry that brought food and medicine, often too little to save lives. Guards patrolled relentlessly to prevent anyone from escaping. Patients were crammed into small, damp buildings where disease spread easily. Medical knowledge was limited. Treatments were little more than superstition, herbs, prayers, and isolation. Death was constant. Families sent their sick here with the hope of cure, but most never returned. Some were left to die alone, their cries lost in the salty lagoon winds. The island's building became charnel houses. Over time, centuries of death left a heavy mark on the very stones. One of the most enduring legends is that of the Wailing Woman. Locals say that at twilight, the mournful cries of a woman rise from the ruins of the lazaretto. It is believed that she was a mother who lost her children to the plague, left to wander the island, forever searching for them. Fishermen claim to hear her lament as they row past the island in the evening fog. Some swear that the sound is so piercing it chills the blood and stops the heart. The legends warn visitors to stay clear after dark, for the Wailing Woman's sorrow might just take you with her into depths. After the last plague outbreak, Poveglia's story darkened further. In 1922, the island was repurposed as a psychiatric hospital. The move was driven by the need to isolate those deemed mentally ill far from the city, often abandoned or forgotten by families. The asylum was notorious for its brutal treatment methods. Patients were subjected to electroshock therapy, isolation, and even lobotomies, many without consent. Records are scarce, but whispers speak of a cruel doctor named Dr. Barbaro, obsessed with death and decay. Rumors say he conducted experiments on inmates, pushing the boundaries of medical ethics and human endurance. His reign of terror allegedly ended in madness. Legend has it he jumped from the hospital's bell tower, a dark silhouette, his screams swallowed by the lagoon. Now, the bell tower remains one of Poveglia's most chilling landmarks. Although the original bell was removed decades ago, locals claim it still rings on foggy nights. Visitors report hearing the mournful toll echoing across the water with no apparent source. Some say it's the restless spirits of Dr. Barbaro, forever trapped in his own nightmare. Others believe it's a warning, a signal that the island's horror are never truly silent. Former patients are said to haunt the crumbling asylum halls as well. Visitors report shadowy figures, sudden cold spots, and faint whispers that seem to float on the breeze. Some had claimed to see ghostly apparitions in old patients' room, faces twisted in pain, eyes pleading for release. Stories tell of a spectral nurse pushing an empty wheelchair down broken corridors, disappearing into walls. Whether fact or fiction, these tales add to the island's ominous reputation as a place where the dead refuse to rest. By the late 1960s, the asylum was shut down. Officially, it was due to outdated facilities. Unofficially, rumors suggest something darker. Perhaps the island had seen too much pain. Perhaps the doctors knew something they refused to write down. After the hospital closed, Poveglia was sealed off. The buildings were left to decay, windows broken, was overtaken by vines and rot. The island became a forbidden zone. The Italian government declared it off limits to the public, citing safety reasons, but to locals it was something else entirely. Haunted, tainted, cursed. Even today, many won't even speak of it by name. The fishermen steer their boats wide around it, even if it means a longer route. It sits quietly in the lagoon, a forgotten fortress of sorrow and silence. Legend says that over 160,000 plague victims were burned and buried on Poveglia, so many that half the island's soil is made from human ash. In fact, modern archaeological surveys confirm that charred bones and skeleton lie just beneath the surface. Dig a few inches into the earth and you find history's dead looking back at you. Some say the air itself carries the weight of death, thick, heavy, suffocating. Visitors have reported nausea and headaches upon arrival. Others say the trees whisper in the wind, speaking in tongues no longer remembered. Despite being close to the public, curiosity never sleeps. Over the years, thrill seekers, ghost hunters, and paranormal investigators have snuck onto the islands under cover at night. Many returned shaken. A few did not return at all. One group, filming a paranormal documentary, reported hearing disembodied voices, including a woman softly begging, "Help me, please." They described sudden temperature drops, equipment malfunctions, and the overwhelming feeling of being watched. Several claimed to see figures darting between the trees, shadows moving where no one stood. Even skeptics admitted something felt wrong. A travel writer who managed to bribe a boat operator to land said he felt a presence watching me from the moment I stepped onto the dock. He lost it less than 2 hours before fleeing in terror. Some locals believe that Poveglia is more than haunted, that it is a literal gateway to the underworld. It's said that so much death, madness, and despair tore open a spiritual rift in the island's core, a place where the veil between worlds is thinner, a place where the dead do not sleep, where the living are never truly alone. Even today, the legends warn, if you step foot on Poveglia, you may not return the same, if you return at all. In the 21st century, whispers of reclaiming Poveglia began to surface. The Italian government, facing mounting maintenance costs and curious foreign interests, put the island up for auction. The hope was to find a developer, someone who could breathe new life into the abandoned ruins. In 2014, a businessman named Luigi Brugnaro, who would later become the mayor of Venice, won the bid. He proposed converting the island into luxury resort and cultural center. The reaction was swift and largely negative. Historians, spiritualists, and people who wanted to conserve the island protested. Local residents were outraged at the idea of profiting from what they saw as a sacred mass grave. Haunted or not, Poveglia was a place of deep historical pain, a place of remembrance, not relaxation. Under pressure, the deal fell through. Once again, Poveglia was left alone, watched from a distance, shrouded in legend. Now let's pull back the veil and ask, how much of Poveglia's story is true, and how much is myth passed down, shaped by fear and imagination? What we know is that Poveglia was used as a quarantine station for centuries. During major plague outbreaks, thousands of infected were brought there. Human remains, including mass graves, have been found. It was home to a psychiatric facility in the early 20th century. That facility was closed in 1968 and the island was abandoned. The soil does contain a significant amount of cremated remains and ash. The island has been officially off-limits for decades, requiring special permits for access. Now, what is uncertain is there is no documented proof of a mad doctor jumping off the bell tower. The story likely evolved from oral legend. The number of deaths, 160,000, is widely quoted but difficult to verify. Paranormal activity remains anecdotal. No scientific investigation has proven or disproven the stories. Claims of ghosts, spectral figures, or cursed soil came mostly from folklore, tourism media, and local lore. But here's the thing, truth and myth often grow together. When a place carries that much pain, horror, and human loss, something lingers, whether it's a ghost or just a weight of memory. Poveglia is not just a haunted island, it's a mirror, reflecting how we deal with fear, disease, isolation, and death. A place that humanity once used to push away the unwanted, the sick, the dying, the mad. Its silence speaks volumes. The crumbling hospital, the ruined bell tower, the overgrown graves, they are monuments to those we try to forget. Maybe that's why the stories persist. Maybe that's why the ghosts won't leave. Not because they are trapped, but because we haven't fully acknowledged them. Poveglia stands as a warning and a whisper that beneath the surface of any paradise there may lie centuries of pain, and that even the most beautiful places can carry the darkest histories. So if you ever visit Venice and you see a small island in the mist, listen closely. You might just hear the bell toll once more. I hope that you liked today's episode and make sure to tune in for more. My name is Creeps. Thank you for listening.